Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters on That podcast. I'm your host Brian. And joining me today is a special guest. We got Jesse Myers. I guess where are you hailing from actually?
Central Texas. I am currently in Belton, Texas.
All right, we got Texan on here, and he's part of the group. Well, actually, solo project, we should say, after the Mourning. So, how you doing, brother?
I am fantastic. Having a wonderful Easter middle of the afternoon right now.
And for some reason, he's doing it in a school too. So I guess this is a little odd. But I guess how'd you end up at a school?
Well, I decided that I didn't want to fight with a 3-year-old the whole time that we were doing this. So her mom suggested that I just, leave the house so you don't get that side of me. Like I love you, kid, but go over there and be quiet. That doesn't happen. We don't get those moments until much later in the evening.
Actually, yeah. There was a funny YouTube video I saw. It was like, why'd you go play hide and go fuck yourself? That's sort of one. Well, we can't say that to a 3-year-old, no, can we?
No. That will be
That's
the
parenting.
new catchphrase that gets them sent home from school every day.
It'll be like, I'm so proud of you. But you learned that language a little too soon there, babe. So,
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, maybe when you're enlisted.
All right, sounds good. I guess what's new recently? I guess so. What you been doing with your solo project?
Well, it's kind of been on hiatus for a long time, unintentionally, but we are putting out a series of. Okay, so I'm kind of working backward from the second album. I've got the majority of the second album recorded except for drums. So I found a drummer. He laid down drums on it's 8 tracks are going to be on the EP, right? But one of them doesn't have drums, and one of them's an instrumental, and one of them's an alternate version. So it's only like 5 songs that are new. But so working backward from the second album, I'm going to break it up into 2 EPs. I've got different drummers working on both of those EPs. The first one is ready, but I don't want to just drop an EP and then do nothing for 6 months. So instead, I'm single every 6 weeks. And again, working backward, I picked a cool date to drop the EP as Friday the 13th, which happens to be in December, and just counted back 6 weeks several times from there to get to April 12th. So in just under 2 weeks, that first single, the title track, Our Transgressions, will be streaming everywhere. That's the big thing. The bigger thing is that even though I'm dropping that EP on streaming platforms in December, it's ready, so you can buy it. So if you want to sit and listen to it for free, you can listen to one song every 6 weeks. If you want to listen to the whole thing, give me a couple of dollars and I'll give it to you. Or, have a radio show or a podcast and I'll send them to you. So you can hear the songs here, but if you go over to Spotify, it's not there for another 2 weeks. And the next one's not going to be there till May. So if you listen to On the Agenda on this show and you're like, that's pretty cool, I'm going to put it on my playlist. No, you're not. Not till May. But if you would like it on vinyl, you can pre-order the vinyl, and that will help me fund the vinyl so I don't have to do everything out of my pocket all the time and then sit here with boxes of merch that never sell. So you want it, you buy it, or wait.
Give me $1. Yeah.
Oh, yes. The Give Us a Dollar song. I made sure that was going to be on the first EP because it's not going to do a whole lot of good on the third EP. I will need dollars before that. And I made the Give Us a Dollar stickers, and there's the Give Us a Dollar fund once the Indiegogo campaign launches. One of the things in it is to just give us $1. But if you want a sticker, that's also $1. Yeah. Just having fun with it. You gotta have some fun, no matter what your genre.
That's for sure too. Actually, it's going to be like what goes in one pocket goes in the other pocket. So
oh yeah, everything I get, like I'm gonna buy cassettes and CDs and all the stickers and everything outright, and then all of the money that comes in for those things goes into the vinyl. And maybe someday I'll actually make a profit off of the vinyl, but first I have to have the money to have it pressed, because I don't want to do the lathe, you know, the cutting. I want to do the pressing. And I've found a lot of places that do short runs at different prices, and basically whatever the Indiegogo makes, that determines what program I go through to do that.
All right, sounds good. So here's open. Here's open for Bright Days. All right. So Jesse, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. And the way it's going to work is let's get to know you more both as a musician, but also as the individual too. So set your questions and everything too. And I think I might like to dive into a little bit of teaching as well too. So you ready?
Okay.
So I guess let's start with the first one right here. I guess who are you? How did you become a musician?
I started playing trumpet when I was about 11, whatever 6th grade is. So trumpet, and then took a couple of years of piano lessons, a few months of guitar, a few months of bass. And I've just been a bassist on stage forever, because 16 was a long time ago for me. I don't want to do that math right now because I have the day off. But yeah, 16 was a long time ago. I'm in my 40s now. So I've been playing bass forever, but since I know how to play guitar and piano, I do most of my songwriting on one of those and then write bass lines around it. And then lyrically, I guess that's a later question, but I've been a musician for a long time. I've taken vocal coaching for a few months when I finally found out that I was going to have to sing my own songs. It's a nightmare. And I did an internship at a recording studio. So I've done basically everything but drums at this point. And at this age, I've finally decided that the goal was always to get a drum set when I bought a house and then learn drums. But here I am, 42, and I'm thinking I could find another drummer who can do a better job in a lot less time than I can learn to play drums as well as I want drums played. There are a lot of people out there who can drum. Why don't I use their skills instead of trying to divide mine up even more? Because that's what I have, free time. As far as this being a solo project, I've been thinking about this all morning, and I know it might not be exactly the question you asked, but this was never supposed to be a solo project. It didn't start as a solo project. It will not end as a solo project. This is kind of an interim solo era. The reason I started recording all my own songs was actually because the guitar players in the band won't let go of their guitars. So back in, I want to say 2006, 2007, I was writing songs, and I'd tell the guitar players, hey, I want to show you what I wrote. And I've got 2 guitar parts and a bass part, and they all work together, and they would white knuckle their guitars. There was no way I was getting a guitar out of this kid's hand to show him what I wrote. And I thought, well, maybe if I just record it and play it, then they will hear the way that all of the parts work together. And before that ever came about, there were a lot of lineup changes, and eventually we were playing my songs, and then there were more lineup changes, and then there was no band anymore, and I was in another band. And so, yeah, it became a side project based on the impression that I get is that I'm always the bass player in someone else's band. They are not the guitar players in my band. And so what I need is, somebody who can sing and play guitar for the songs that I've written instead of me playing bass for the songs that they've written, or at least both. A nice balance of both would be great. But even for a while there, trying out new guitar players, what would happen is a new guitar player would show up, learn some of my stuff and I would learn some of his stuff, and we would start recording, and then he'd quit. And then I've got another, 2/3 of an album recorded that I have to just scrap because it's all this other guy's songs or him playing on my stuff. I've got to go in and re-record it. So yeah, the solo project is more out of, I just have to get it out. These are my songs and I need a record that I have existed for all this time. So I got to get it out, and it's nothing to do with like, I'm too good for a band. It's certainly not that. I know my limitations. I've heard myself sing. I'm hiring a drummer because I know somebody else can do it better. And he's so excited about it. And again, this is another later question, but he wants to play more. He's like, when are we going to find some guitar players and actually play some shows? So it's not a permanent solo project. I went to go see these guys, Camacho. And as I'm on my way out the door, I tell my daughter, I'm going to go see a concert. I'm going to go see some people that I, respect, go do their thing, right? And as I'm leaving, she's like, when do I get to see you play? And I about cried. I turned to my wife and I was like, I need a band. I haven't had a band since I moved to Texas in 2013. I need a band. But for right now, I'm going to go see Camacho and Vegas Day Trip. And I don't know if you've got their music, but it's good. If you're down with the similar to the type of music that I play, only probably better because they have a band, check out Camacho for sure. And Vegas Day Trip is loads of fun. And they're both from the Austin area. Great show.
That's pretty cool. I guess does it take place in Las Vegas? This little festival they're doing?
No, Vegas Day Trip is just, I didn't ask them how they came up with their name. Because I was just there rocking out at their concert. I wasn't leading a Q&A. They weren't on my podcast. I don't know where their name came from.
I see. All right. And good for your daughter, too. But it was like, she just put you right on the spot right there. It's like, damn, how am I supposed to react to this right now?
She is so much my biggest cheerleader. I put her in the thanks. I handed the CD to my wife when I finally got it in the mail. And right above thanking my wife, there's thanking my daughter for telling me to play the song again. I drive her to daycare. She's like, I need to hear it again. Like, that's what I want to hear. I look in the rearview mirror and she's just rocking out back there. It gets to the end of the song and she's just screaming. I'm just like, that's great.
Good kid.
Okay. Yeah, that's a keeper.
I guess outside of the Vegas Day Trip, too, I guess, how'd you come up with your name after the Mourning? Not the Mourning like with Mourning Doves or anything, too. It's more like the crying sort of Mourning, just to fill in the audience.
Yes, Mourning with a U, and it actually comes down to kind of an Easter idea, right? But the process of coming up with a band name is extensive. When you've got 4 or 5 guys with all their different ideas, and then you've got the internet with hundreds of thousands of bands who already have names. And so in this and other projects, coming up with a band name that isn't already taken is a matter of, like, people in the band get to veto names. You cross out one, you get down to like a top 3 or 4, and then I would go to work, because this was long enough ago we didn't all have the internet in our pockets. Or at least it wasn't as powerful as it is now. But we'd go into work and I'd pull up the internet at work and start searching every possible place where you could find music online. And finally got to, After the Mourning was one where there wasn't one. In fact, right before After the Mourning, it was In the Mourning. And there was a band, I want to say it was in Chicago or something, with 1,000 followers. I'm like, well, we're not going to sneak by that. So we were all really, really excited about finding it. And then the other part is drawing logos and trying to come up with these symmetrical metal looking logos or whatever. And I think the ATM logo I came up with was pretty cool enough that I'm still using it, and I drew it up in like 2005. So I've tried modifications where I make it circular or something, and I always go back to that diamond shape with kind of the Batman mask in the middle. Yeah. But coming up with the name was a lot of ideas and a lot of vetoes, and got to one that we all liked. And then people started quitting the band, and it's like, well, I was the one who came up with it. I've been paying for the URL. Like I already had afterthemourning.com back then. Set up the Facebook, actually the MySpace before that. That's how long this has been going on. You know, I've got stickers on my lunchbox that say, you know, myspace.com/afterthemourninglovesyou. Because that was the one we went with for the official MySpace. The other one was somebody's personal. So, yeah, long process to get a good name that nobody else was using.
Yeah, I can imagine too. Because actually, I use the name Demiurge for like my little. It's a project that I'm doing. I'm actually teaming up with like various indie musicians in our little band together community. Which we can talk about. Which we can talk about just a moment here too. But I guess actually I didn't think about ATM at first. I'd be like, oh, that's what it meant there too. So
yeah,
do it a little bit there too. So that's pretty cool. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead there too, but it seems like you kind of went through a whole lot of lineup changes. So I guess was that pretty much your biggest challenge, or I guess what other challenges have you faced being in this
lineup
position?
challenges are huge because they're always stupid. We had some huge arguments because, you know, everybody wants to take over the world. You don't want to be the band that plays to an audience of 4 that are also the other band, right? I've played enough free shows where it turns out something else was going on that night. You know, we're in someone else's town, so we don't realize it's prom night. Nobody's going to show up to your rock show on prom night. So the entire audience was 3 or 4 bands that were playing that night, along with their girlfriends and, you know, whatever roadie, groupie type people they had to unload the van. So I've played my share of those. Anyway, so the argument was always, should we play more shows or write more songs or work on a recording? Because we went probably, I want to say close to a year and a half with 5 songs that we all enjoyed. We might have had 8 songs, but everybody had one they didn't like. And so, okay, we're going to play these 5 and then pick one of the others for like a year and a half. And I was always pushing for writing more songs, and the front man was always pushing for playing more shows. Like, well, we don't have enough songs to play more shows, and we're always playing the same place to the same people. Like, they've seen us, they know our name. We're established as far as those 5 people are concerned. Let's get bigger. Let's come up with enough stuff to where we could play an hour-long set without having to talk for 10 minutes between every song, you know? And so even though obviously nobody wants to have, sorry, my computer locked up. I'm typing in my password.
This guy's a little cheat sheet out and everything too, so he came prepared.
So, yeah, everybody wants to rule the world, but in what order of operations? And so while I wanted to write new songs, they wanted to play more shows. And that wasn't why anybody quit, but it was this huge source of tension to where when other things came up, you know, the drummer wanted to play guitar. So when the front man quit for completely separate reasons, we gave him that choice. We're like, well, we need somebody else. Do you want to be on drums or guitar? He moved to guitar. We found a new drummer. Great. But he also wrote songs and wanted to sing his own songs. So he ended up having 2 other bands. He had a cover band and his band where he was the front man. and then our band where he was the lead guitar player, former drummer. And so we were just the first band that didn't matter anymore. And then the other guitar player got busy doing other things and just kind of no call, no showed, like never officially said he quit, but just stopped showing up. And I don't know how much of that is my personality. I'm sure about 92% is probably my personality, but I know that's what happened with the whole second lineup around 2008. We had rebuilt everything back up, and then there was an ice storm. And I'm sure I was getting really neurotic about not making it to band practice that week. And I'm pretty sure, and of course, this is all happening in my head, they had a gripe session when I wasn't there. And I don't know what I said, but the band didn't exist anymore the next week. Everybody had unanimously quit, right? But then they all formed another band. And in their new band, they came and recorded with me in the studio as their engineer. And then they broke up again and formed another band with me as the bassist. So, and I went into that saying, okay, I am your bassist. This is not After the Mourning. This is your band, and I'm just here to play bass and give advice where I see fit. And we recorded an EP, and then they kicked me out when they were done using me as an engineer. That was another, long series of meetings to come up with a band name. And, they kicked me out of the band, and I was like, wait, do I get to keep the name I came up with? Or I'll use it someday for an instrumental or something. They broke up. They actually got divorced. But not to laugh at someone else's misfortune. I don't wish that on anyone, but it's like that. I've been in so many bands with the same members even before that. The main front man for After the Mourning, when he brought me in back when it had a different name and a totally different sound, I'd been in 2 other bands with him before. So he already knew me as a bassist and was like, this'll work. And then we fought the whole time. But not even about anything serious. It was always about, do we want to play shows or write songs? We want to do both, but what do we want to do this week? I forgot the question.
Yeah, no, you're good. It was more in terms of challenges too, but it seems like yours was definitely been more of the lineup changes for the most part too. But I guess how bad is marketing and time constraints for you? Because it seems like you do like a main job with teaching wise, and I guess also your 3-year-old too, kind of holding you down. Yes.
So as far as challenges, one of the notes I made for myself over here is that it's all me. It's me getting in my way. I see a lot of excuses and a lot of reasons why I haven't put out an album that has been, halfway recorded for 10 years. And a lot of it, I can say, well, I bought a house. I moved across the country. I had a kid. I've gone from teaching grade level physics to AP Physics 1. There are a lot of demands on my time. And by the time the 3-year-old goes to bed at 9 o'clock at night, I don't want to do more work. If my day goes from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., the last thing I'm going to do at 9 p.m. is put on headphones and start mixing. It might be cathartic, but I feel like it would also be really stressful because you get so hyper-focused. I get so hyper-focused when I'm mixing. So this EP, I paid somebody else to mix, which is not much better because he doesn't have my vision. So there was a whole lot of him sending me a mix and me sending it back with notes at an hourly rate where I was like, I'm doing the next one myself because I can hear what I sent him, but that's not what he's sending me back. So when you're not sitting on the couch behind the engineer going, no, that, up, down, up, there it is. If I could be on the couch with him, that would be one thing. But yeah, I'm probably going to mix the next one myself. But time is a big one. And really part of why I'm teaching, I want to make a difference in the child's life, but really it's summers. So why am I not using summers? Well, because we do road trips, or I do summer school, or both. Or last year I finally got to read AP tests and grade AP tests, and then a road trip. So yeah, time is huge, and especially when there's nobody else. So being on my own right now is costing me a lot of money because there's nobody to share the bill with, including the engineer and paying for a drummer. Yeah, it's been time and money. And then people are like, hey, you know what we need? Music should be free. Let's just stop paying musicians. And not that I've ever been paid, but people just all agreeing as a society that paying musicians is not something we should do, really dims the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you get grandfathered in if you've been doing it for 30 or 40 years, but if you're new, we don't have money for you.
Yeah, we're still paying the Rolling Stones all the big bucks just to go out there and still play in your 80-year age and everything too.
Oh so. Yeah, they can make as much money as they want, and I'm not going to fault them for it. They've worked their way up. I don't know their whole story, but they earned it.
That's all that matters. They earned it. They fought hard.
It wasn't pop, right? They weren't playing what everybody else was playing, so they had to find their audience, which apparently was everyone, because they're pop now, or they were. Yeah.
Or at least I still thought they were classic rock. So I thought that's what they were. I don't know about poppy these days.
No. They went through a phase where they were huge, and now you can buy T-shirts. And I see students at this high school wearing Rolling Stones T-shirts, and I wonder, could you name three songs? But I'm not going to say that out loud. I'm sure it's just cool and vintage looking, maybe something they found in their aunt's closet. But by pop, I don't mean, they're not Wham, but they were huge for a time. You'd say the same thing about Ozzy. He started out nowhere, got enormous, and today's generation knows him as, a guy with a TV show about his family.
The Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know Sabbath.
Come to the Sabbath. Yeah.
I was late to the party myself. I probably knew Osmosis before I knew Sabbath, but
yeah.
Everybody's just looking at all the drawings of bodies. What is this class?
You stepped into the anatomy class, so man.
I think it's forensics, but it's definitely set up like an anatomy class right now. There's 3 skeletons over in the corner. I was sure this was a forensics class last year.
I'll say you probably ended up in a pathology class too. I remember taking that in college just as a little bit of a science course, just to at least get a credit on it for general education. So that's what I was thinking too. Then, actually, the way your tattoos were looking, I think man, this guy must be a hell of a PT or a PE teacher. So actually, you teach science, all sorts of physics and stuff.
Yeah, and I wear long sleeves and I take out all my piercings. I run into people from school and they're like, when did you get your nose pierced? 2007, but I don't wear it to work. And it's not even that this particular district would have a problem, because I see a lot of teachers here with lots of tattoos and piercings and, purple hair or whatever. Most of them are girls. And it's been my experience, because I'm old and most of my work experience is from decades ago, but it's been my experience that there's kind of when you read the handbook, there's always 2 different dress codes. And then there's always 2 different levels of enforcement. I worked at a fast food place for my first job, and there were rules, but it was like men can't have earrings, women can have one pair of like quarter-inch hoops or studs, nothing that goes like below the earlobe. So my buddy shows up with an earring and gets sent home. And I look over at the girl who's got like 11 earrings, eyebrow ring, lip ring. She's got curls coming out of her hat. It's like, none of that is okay according to the handbook. It's all okay according to me. But if you're going to judge people based on the handbook, like you're going to send him home and ignore that. So, and it happened a lot as a security officer too, where like the female security officers would have 3 buttons undone and purple streaks and nose rings. And I'm sitting there in long sleeves buttoned up to my throat so that my neck tattoo doesn't show. Wearing a high and tight with all my piercings out. I've got flesh colored earrings and like, this is not even. But that's
just not right, man. I just want to say. This is not right. Or we tend to be more lenient towards the woman too, so probably another thing.
Well, and so the kids ask me when I'm gonna wear a short sleeve shirt to school, and I'm like, I'm not, because something you have to learn is when you get a tattoo that's visible, you might end up with a job where you can't have visible tattoos. So before you get your hands and neck tattooed, consider what you're gonna have to wear for the rest of your life. Because here I am, everybody else is sitting down drinking ice water. I'm up and walking around drinking coffee. I am never cold here in Central Texas. You can complain about the AC all you want. I'm just glad it's working today. Because I'm going to wear long sleeves for the same reason I'm, taking out my nose rings and lip rings. I'm trying to show you what it looks like to be a professional. Plus, I'm already pushing it with the man bun and the wizard beard.
Yeah, you got the haggard beard and everything too. People are going to think, oh, man, this guy's a badass hunter too.
Oh, they get that question all the time, asking me about motorcycles. Like, no, I don't take risks. I do my art. I have my daughter. I want to be alive for a long time. Not that you can't die in the bathtub, but I'm not going to intentionally go out there and ride a motorcycle. Just too risky. I've known too many people who wrecked too many times, and that doesn't sound like fun for me.
Well, so yeah, I could have a picture of you in the Harley leather and everything too.
Yeah, but no.
Big openings in the exhaust. You just dominate the scene.
Never really enjoyed riding on the back of a motorcycle enough to think I wanted to be on the front.
That's technically what they call the bitch seat. Apparently what they call it. So.
Well, I've earned it.
World's number one bitch. There we go. How about that?
Yeah.
So.
Put me in a sidecar. I'm just a bassist.
People are then going to think, oh, is that a bear in the sidecar right there? So, it's all good.
I don't.
I see your point of view, yeah, because I've heard stories, yeah. I think one guy had to get his leg amputated because it was just that bad of an accident because he was drinking too. It's scary shit, man. It's scary shit. I guess before we jump into being a teacher, I guess, how would you describe the genre of music that you play? Just strictly in After the Mourning.
Loud is usually what I go with. I do a lot of yelling and growling. I don't scream. I haven't figured it out. I'm not against it. I listen to a lot of screaming bands, and I think that would be cool if I had a screamer in the band, but I can't figure it out. That's another one of those, like, when I find a guitar player, maybe. So I've been thinking a lot this week about putting a band together and what all I need to look for if I'm just looking for musicians instead of trying to find friends who play. And I would love to have a couple of guitar players who can also sing and or scream. And maybe we can just divide that up. So it's not just always me singing, because I'm already, like, I have a dry throat before I even started this interview. I've got chronic bronchitis. I don't want to pull an Aussie and cancel half a tour because my throat hurts, There are plenty of bands that do that, whether it's the Eagles or Linkin Park or Blink 182. Like lots of bands have multiple vocalists. And so, yeah, it would be great to find a couple of guitar players where they can sing and or scream and kind of divide up. Because I know I can't do both. I usually split up, or at least I plan out my vocal sessions so I scream at the end, but it's never screaming. It's just yelling. But that's the vocal, picking out a genre. So for various reasons, I wouldn't call it metal, but somebody who doesn't know what metal is might call it metal. It's in that. I want to call it angry grunge, right? You take the grunge bands from 94 to 97 and take their angriest songs, and that's part of the genre. And I would like to get to where I have the range of, say, Foo Fighters, where as you go from the soft songs to the loud songs, it's all kind of in that same range with maybe some overlap with some heavier bands. But I'm not Pantera. I'm a huge Pantera fan, but I wouldn't say that's my genre. That's just, one of my favorite concerts that I still brag about. Yeah, I saw Pantera. White Zombie opened. That's cool. I'm old. That was like 97. And so I kind of circulate around that time still, where I'm like, yeah, I saw Green Day on the Insomniac tour. That's kind of my, it's rock. That is rock. And it's from this era. I don't know how long you want me to go, but I've got thoughts, right? And one of my tangents that I go into that I know I have some notes in here about that I'm not even looking at now, but it's like every generation of music, as it kind of shifts, seems to pride itself in laziness. I mean, we've gone from classical rock, just looking at rock, where there is some really intense interwoven guitar work going on. Whether you're listening to Queen or Thin Lizzy, it's all got all these intricacies. The Eagles, all of this stuff. And then you get into AC/DC. And then you get into, we're at mumble rap now, right? Everybody kind of prides themselves in being lazier than the people that came before. And I like to think kind of the 94 to 04 era, that decade, give or take 3 years either direction. Probably a sweet spot in where it's simple enough to just be rock, but still priding themselves in good musicianship. I want to be there. I don't have anything against rock in 2020. But probably because that's when I was 14 and learning about music. I love that era, kind of grunge era, and everything that went with it. Throw in some Hootie and the Blowfish. Everything from that time period, I think, was kind of a height of music in my life. Loved it. A lot of great stuff coming out of that time, and that's the genre I want to associate with. Yeah, it's 2024 and I'm putting out a record and I want people to be like, this sounds like it's 30 years old.
Doesn't sound like Jesus year old. So yeah. Yeah. Actually, would you say like all those bands you did list, I know you did list a good number there, I guess, would you say those are all the bands that influenced you and your sound? Oh,
yeah, I would say that era, Pantera and White Zombie, obviously. As far as my sound, yeah, it's probably got some Pearl Jam in there. Some of what was big then, Candlebox and Silverchair. And I actually, I'll still go to those concerts. I've seen Offspring twice in the last couple of years. I've seen POD probably 3 times in the last couple of years. I'll always go back to that. You know, I like to take influences from things. I like to listen to classical music and think, what would this sound like on an overdriven guitar? You know, what would Beethoven Moonlight Sonata sound like on a heavy metal guitar with a blast beat? It's heavy enough on piano. What would it sound like played by a metal band? And I think August Burns Red really delivers that on their Christmas albums. If you haven't yet, you know, play some August Burns Red on your Christmas shows. They can do it. But and then when it comes to producing and mixing and elevating a song, I think if you listen to Nine Inch Nails and it doesn't make you want to engineer, you're not listening. Because if you can sit there and just listen straight through any Nine Inch Nails album, beginning to end, you can feel the flow of it, not just song to song, but like within a song and how things change. And I have sat in the studio with a lot of engineers and just been like, yeah, it was Trent Reznor. You know, the Downward Spiral made me want to mix my own album, because once you've got all the chord progressions and all the words, how can you make it even better? You know, With Teeth, probably not the most popular Nine Inch Nails album, but in each song, you hear these shifts in tone that are only done in mixing. Like, there's no actual change to the music, but dude knows what he's doing. And,
he knows his shit, yeah.
Yeah, and still. And, you know, I watched Soul because I have a 3-year-old. And at the end, I see Trent Reznor in the credits, and I go, okay, I hear it now. Like, I don't know why I didn't hear it before, but we're going to watch this again now. And now every
I'm
time
thinking like you just
it,
saw it and you're like, that motherfucker. So, yeah.
I'm like, the whole time I saw somebody else post, you know, someday kids are going to think of Trent Reznor as a guy who did movie scores. I was like, yeah, have you heard of Oingo Boingo? Yeah, it's happened before. But again, one of those guys who's earned it. If that's what he wants to do, he wants to just score children's movies now, okay. He'll still put out 6 albums a year, but he can do whatever he wants, and I'm not going to fault him for it. And in that way, among others, definitely an inspiration. Can't listen to After the Mourning and go, yeah, it sounds like Nine Inch Nails, but it's in there in other ways.
All right, fair enough too. Yeah, Trent Reznor. Actually, I think his one song, Hurts. I think you could definitely say Johnny Cash probably beat him on that one too. Pretty good. He was like, it's not my song anymore. I think that's what he said.
Something like that. But then every time I see a rock band cover Johnny Cash's Hurt, I'm not listening to it. There's just something about, like, you're a rock band. You need to give credit where it's due. Obviously, Cash did great work. I've watched the video. I've bought the video on DVD for my stepdad. It's beautiful. Somebody stole my copy. I bought another copy. Great album beginning to end. His cover of Rusty Cage is also like, what just happened here, right? And then you hear people who just, they don't know, but they talk anyway. So I was in Iraq, I believe, when that album came out or very soon after, and overhearing conversations about the new Johnny Cash song Hurt. And it grated on all of my nerves. And then it turned into these same people saying, Johnny Cash is a hack. He doesn't write his own stuff. And I just thought, I can't argue with these people if they think that Hurt is Johnny Cash's song. And when they find out it's not, they think Johnny Cash didn't write his own stuff like that. I'm just going to give him a couple of decades to figure it out.
I'm going to start shortening your lifespan too if you start arguing with them too.
Yeah.
Killed by stupidity. That's what I probably would like to say. Yeah.
I can't waste that level of energy and emotion on things that really aren't my problem. I've got enough of my own problems.
Yeah, we got enough of that to worry about too. So, actually, I'm pretty sure one of those problems was COVID too. So, how about this? Tell us how you became a teacher, and then how'd you handle COVID, both in terms of teaching and then music and family wise.
COVID came at an interesting time. Back it up. How'd I become a teacher? I had a lot of stupid jobs I hated. And my favorite part about, been in here long enough for the lights to turn off. My favorite part about every job was when they would hire somebody new and I got to train them. And so I thought, well, maybe what if I just train forever? And then it turned into, well, what would be a strength that I could pass on? And when it comes to math and science, that's always been a big thing for me. I didn't realize until I started teaching that idea that not everybody comes equipped the same way. I can't remember. It's not in my notes because I didn't think about this, but that idea that we all think everybody else is as smart as us in the same way, well, that's not the case. And so I always thought the only reason people think they're not good at math is because some teacher somewhere failed them and told them they're not good at math and they quit trying. Because all math is finding patterns or whatever, right? No, after 10 years of teaching, there are people who just aren't good at math. And maybe it's because I'm teaching them as juniors in high school. And if I could catch them by like third grade, I could turn that around. But there are a lot of people that have a lot of trouble with multiple step processes. But then they have no trouble with other things. So they're really good at certain types of problem solving, but physics isn't it. And that's been a really hard thing for me because I want everybody to get it and I want to make everyone smarter. I had a girl a couple of weeks ago be like, I think I just got smarter. And I almost cried. I just suddenly remembered like, oh wait, it wasn't June, July, and August. The reason I became a teacher was to make kids smarter. And it felt so good to hear that, even though I know she was being sarcastic. I was like, wait, that's what I did. I want people to be smart. I don't care if you learn physics. Maybe what you learn in this class is empathy, right? But I want people to grow and become better people. And part of the way they can do that is, figuring out that you do the parentheses first. I don't care. As long as you're growing in my class and not just dicking around on your phone the whole time. That's a battle.
You can do that during study hall. That's what you got to tell them, yeah.
Yeah. I, over 10 years, have gotten to the point where it's usually fail quietly. Like, I cannot force you to pass the class, but if you're going to fail, do it in a way that everyone around you doesn't also fail. Because I want to be able to reach some of the kids. I understand now I can't fix everything for everyone, but I want to be able to fix something for someone. So how I got into teaching was I decided training the new guy is the fun part. What if I could just always be doing that? And it turned into biology, and I got a degree in genetics. And then I showed up to high school and started trying to teach a tested subject to freshmen, and I do not have the patience. So I've moved away from freshmen. So even though I love biology and I love the stories in biology, the way that it's taught usually involves too much memorization, not enough problem solving. Basically the opposite of physics. And I can still tell fun fun stories in physics, like there's a cat hanging off of a ceiling fan. Find the linear versus angular momentum of the cat. I can do stuff like that, and not have to deal with freshmen and not have to deal with several layers of school administration looking at my test scores, because the combination of freshmen and that level of oversight was just too much. I'm not going back.
Explains why I want to use the paddleboard in order to beat up freshmen. Or at least that's what Family Guy was doing.
Sounds about right. I think of that scene in Silicon Valley where TJ Miller is beating up the kids who are selling their Ritalin. I think he was buying Ritalin off of them or something. I don't remember exactly the context. But he's like just throwing these kids in the bushes. And he has one of the funniest lines from the whole series. Don't bring piss to a shit fight. I can't say that in school. I mean, I just said it in school, but it doesn't count because I'm the only one in the building.
Hey, what's your language, buddy? It's a family-friendly environment. Come on.
Don't bring piss to a shit fight. And just his delivery as he's throwing this kid in the bushes and stealing his Ritalin. It's fantastic. So yeah, not freshmen. For various reasons. And then COVID hit Texas weird because at the same time as COVID, we had an ice storm that knocked out the power at our house for 5 days. And our baby was 2 months old. So we had candles around a baby on our coffee table because the living room was 55 degrees. The rest of the house was 10 to 20 degrees colder. So we had blinds that we could open during the day to let the heat in and then close at night to trap the heat in. And we managed to keep the living room about 55 degrees for that whole 5 days until the power came back on. I think that was the same year. Maybe it was the following year. Now, they call it Snowvid, but there was school going on in person at the time because I had already taken that month off for paternity leave. I decided long ago that when I finally got around to having a kid, I would take time off after the maternity leave to kind of extend that time at home with the kid. And so I didn't take a day off for 5 years, so I had plenty of time off saved up. So when I had to take my month of paternity leave, it just happened to fall on a February. And then I got 5 of those days back because of Snowvid. And it turned out I took a month off and it only cost me 15 days. So I still have 50 days off because I keep getting new days off every year and not using them right away. But COVID itself affected teaching in ways that we haven't recovered from. Because whatever the kids were supposed to learn that year, they didn't, or they didn't retain it. And so every year, I'm getting a different bunch of skills that the kids don't have. This year, I think a big one has been square rooting. I'm still getting kids asking me what the difference is between square and square root, and it's April. Tomorrow, it's April tomorrow, and I've got kids who are like, "What do you mean square root?" And they just
it's a freaky line that goes like this, and then kind of like that too, and then like splits the number in two or something like that.
It's the opposite of squaring. So when you're trying to move things from one side of the equation to the other, if you multiply, you divide. If you divide, you multiply. If you add, you subtract. If you square, you square root. It's
cue the Jeopardy music, yeah.
You're reversing the square. What number squared gives you this? Yeah, all year. And I'm like, what grade were you supposed to learn that? Because it's probably the grade that they were in when COVID hit. Because I've never had to teach square root before. It's a new skill for me to try and teach people what square root means. So it must have happened the year that COVID hit, and they just never learned it. Like there's this little glitch in the matrix at whatever year that was, where the kids just didn't learn anything that year. And it's across the board. I hear it from every department. Whatever they were supposed to learn that year, they didn't. I wish, this is more along the lines of what's in my notes, I wish I could blame COVID for me not, putting out an album for 10 years. But it isn't. It made work harder because I had to redesign everything that, I've got file cabinets full of worksheets that I had to convert to be able to do it online. So I had to plug in answers, either do it as multiple choice or, because I don't want a kid to get something wrong because they didn't know how to round to the nearest hundredth, I'll plug in multiple right answers based on rounding errors. So I'm doing all of this stuff to make up for the fact that I can't just put a worksheet on your desk. It does make grading faster, but the setup I'm still working on it. I'm still doing this work. That's just how it affected school, is, having to do everything through Zoom meetings that the kids don't show up to anyway. Having to design a course that they don't need me for. It's been a process. How it affected me at home was I was home, but there's just something about it where it doesn't feel like free time. It's not like, hey, I'm home, I guess I can mow the lawn now. It's like I'm home and I'm supposed to be working, so I'm kind of on call, and we're having a ton of meetings. And yeah, I can be wearing pajama pants, but that's also my level of motivation to go above and beyond, because there's something emotionally draining from that social isolation and not being able to really work with your team and all that. But I can't really list it as one of the reasons that I'm taking so long to put out an album. I don't think that was it. It would be great if that was it. It's not. It's everything else. It's the moving, it's the changing, it's the not having a band. I wanted to put friends together first and just be friends with a bunch of musicians and start playing again. But apparently I don't hang out in the right places. I'm not hanging out at concert venues. I'm, at school. So I just don't meet musicians. And that's been the biggest part. And then the other part is the kid. It's just, by the time I get to go to bed, I'm going to bed.
That's it. Nights out and everything too. So
yeah,
I can understand. And I guess, did you have any brushes with COVID personally?
Say what?
Did you have any brushes with COVID? Like, did you get real sick and anything?
I think I had it twice, that it was actually, a positive test. There were a few other times where I didn't take the test because I didn't want to miss work. My best friend for 23 years died on a ventilator. And then I guess it was 2 Easters ago, my dad died. And I couldn't tell my friend. So the 2 people I talked to every day about everything, on our last road trip, I hung out with their widows.
Do you need a moment?
Easter has been weird for a couple of years. Because we go out and take pictures of my daughter in the bluebonnets, and my dad died before he got to see him. And so we did that again yesterday, and it's just been Yeah.
That's all they're thinking.
After the morning.
Yeah. After the morning routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Good times.
yeah. I'm sorry
But
to hear
yeah,
that too.
the biggest thing for COVID was my buddy Lawrence. Cool.
All right. I'm sorry to hear that too, but it's good to see you are doing well there, buddy. So stay strong. So,
All right.
and I guess the place here in Belton, Texas, I guess, how's the music scene out there? Is there a lot of pubs with a lot of venues?
I mostly see the same band over and over. So it's my own fault. If I want to go to see rock or metal, I usually drive to Austin or San Antonio, and it's worth it. I've been to a couple of concerts in Dallas, and I don't care if I have to drive 2.5 hours each way to see The Offspring. I'm going to do that. But here in town, the band that I see all the time is this band called Martian Folk, and they play at microbreweries. And actually, the singer-songwriter who leads it was a brewer at one of the breweries we were going to for a long time before a couple others popped up closer. And now he just plays his music constantly. So I was at the brewery that I go to all the time now, which accounts for my figure.
That explains a lot.
Oh yeah, that's my girth. So I'm at the brewery, and they are between sets or between sound check and their first set, and their drummer's not there. He is touring Europe because he's in the Army, retiring.
Oh, that's our touring. I thought you were meaning music touring at first. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I went to his garage. Let's do this chronologically. So I'm hanging out with Martian Folk. We're all just sitting around drinking beers, talking about music, talking about their equipment. Like, what are all these pedals for type questions? How do you like your Shure M7 microphone or whatever? We're having all this talk, and I start griping about, I just need a drummer. I've been emailing all of these session drummers who don't even email back. They are apparently too busy to tell me they're too busy. The engineer that I am talking to is telling me that all of his session drummers are just so backed up right now they can't do anything. Like, well, they can't even tell me they're backed up right now. And he goes, well, why don't you use Joey when he gets back from Europe? I'm like, it never occurred to me to borrow a drummer from another band. But this Joey, between sets, he'll come over and sit at my table with me, and we'll talk about, Social Distortion. He actually introduced me. I'd seen the T-shirts, but I'd never listened to them because, I don't know, just never listened to them. So they were playing on the radio at the brewery, and he's like, you don't know Social D? And so then I listened to their whole discography beginning to end over the summer, and great, cool. So this guy, his MOS in the Army is drumming, and he retired as an E9 as a drummer. I'm like, that's really something. I drive him up to a studio, and we lay down these tracks, and he's playing one of my songs that's in 39/8. But not all of it. The verses are in one time signature, the choruses are in another time signature, and he did maybe 3 takes, but not because he was messing up, just because we're like, no, you can't do this in one take. Try it again and see if it's better. Because he did it in 1 take. Just because I had emailed him WAV files of the songs to practice along with, and he showed up with a spiral notebook with notes, and he was just reading his notes for what he wants to play on each section, how many bars of each, and he is just laying it down. And it was the quickest I've ever been in and out of a studio. And at the end, we're looking at each other. I'm like, hey, you want to do another version of this song? Because I know I told you to pick one version or the other, but you want to just do both? Like, okay. Lays down a song he hasn't been practicing. which is one of the ones that you have. That Our Transgressions, the version that you have was the second version he recorded. He had not been practicing that one. Dude is amazing. So he's someone else's drummer. But on the drive back, we're just joking around. It's a 3-hour drive each way. And I say something about his metabolism because he's super skinny and I'm not. And he's like, yeah, that's actually why I started drumming. ADHD and all that, and just had to do something with my hands. And we're having this whole talk. He's like, yeah, I would love to, have another band. Let's do it. And so since last June, we've been talking about it, and he'll show up and be like, hey, I met a guitar player, but I'm at his show. He has to get back on stage. We don't actually exchange information. It's like, it's all on me. I need to just actually follow up with one of these, but the drummer wants to be in a band. Awesome. Let's do it. Oh yeah, I'm always tired.
Yeah, it happens to be a 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. job. Doesn't really help out too much. So
yeah, it's like, oh great, we have a 3-day weekend this week. That doesn't mean it's a 3-day weekend. It means it's 3 days with the toddler. It's one less day of daycare. Right? The number of times that daycare is open and school is not, it's just not enough time for me to get anything done. And yeah, I'm not about to do it after she goes to bed. So summer, I guess I'll spend all summer mixing.
it's maybe the best option at this point too, considering
Yeah.
the teaching and everything. So right. Thank you so much for what you do, as well as also being a teacher. So keep on going there, buddy. So I guess in terms of the gear that you use, I guess first off, do you still use that studio you had mentioned, I guess, throughout this interview? And I guess what sort of gear do you have for your recordings?
So I did an internship at Sprout City Studios in Eugene, Oregon. And before I moved down to Texas, I got in contact with a whole bunch of studios in the Austin area and north of Austin, because I am about an hour north of Austin. And I haven't done anything with that. I have a MacBook Pro with an Apogee Duet, but it's the original Duet from when it was a Firewire. And they have told me that it's no longer supported. And my version of Digital Performer is so old. And so what I've been doing is going back to the guy who owns that studio. So I asked him, I was like, hey, can I get an update on Digital Performer? He's like, we don't use it anymore because their customer service is trash. And the support that you get when their stuff doesn't work just reinforces that their stuff doesn't work. It's not worth it. So he switched to Logic Pro X. So I go down to, Austin, and they're like, no, you just download it online. I'm like, I need to be in person with somebody. And I took my work computer because it's probably 13 years younger than my home computer. And I installed Logic Pro X on my work computer because it's a beast. MacBook Pro, Logic Pro X. But the Duet doesn't plug into it. And I did some research and found out that I would need 2 dongles, one of which is discontinued. And if I do that, phantom power doesn't work, which is fine because I have a ribbon mic and I don't want phantom power. But I also wouldn't want something going wrong and have phantom power on and I couldn't turn it off because I have a ribbon mic. So I've been looking at the Duet 3, and they have a teacher discount, and I've got that teacher discount code, but it's, I want to say $650. And I'm spending all of my money on mixing, mastering, submissions to Groover, making CDs and cassettes, soon vinyl. So it's on the list to update that so that I want to re-record some vocals on a few songs where I'm still not happy with it. But then I started looking at the Universal Audio, and they have a lot of really cool stuff, and kind of the more in my price range one, I think it's the 476p, the Volt series. So that's what I'm leaning toward now, because the Duet is 2 channels, and as awesome as it is, the Volt has a lot more going on for a lot less money, a couple $100 less for 4 channels instead of 2. And as far as being able to expand, that's worth it. So that's going to be my next major purchase, is a Volt 476p. Is on my list for shopping.
Shopping spree. It must be Black Friday came early.
Yeah, well, and if you look at the difference between the P and the not P, it's how many actual inputs it has. So to have 4 actual inputs instead of 2 at a time or whatever, that makes a huge difference. But I've been doing this since I was using a Roland 880. I bought that Roland 880, and it was digital. It wasn't like a Tascam 4-track tape or anything. But it was long enough ago that buying a CD burner externally was another $600. So I spent more on that CD burner than I'm willing to spend on the whole system now. It was connected with a SCSI cable, which when I lost that cable, it took a long time to find a new one because it was so outdated. I found some warehouse, like where it's got like garage doors full of cables and, you know, floppy disk drives and stuff. And I dug through there until I found a cable that was the right number of pins, and it worked. And I was like, I can burn a CD again. But it was also a 4x, meaning it basically burned the CD in real time. So if I had an hour-long CD, I was going to sit there and watch it for at least an hour. And at one point I was doing that in the student center at college, and some guy comes up and on the table that it's on, and there was like a half-hour skip in the middle of one song. Had to start over. Like just blank dead air for half an hour in the middle of a song.
Yeah, we can have that.
Yeah, time to start over. Doing one song at a time all the way through the album.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Make an entrance.
Yeah. Was there anything else? So yeah. Is there anything else? Or
no complaints about having to get a new digital to analog converter. Other than, oh good, more money. And that's not even something that I would split with a band because I would want it to be mine. So can't even blame not having a band for not buying that. It's my own fault.
Yeah.
I need to do it.
Yeah, that's for sure too. I guess moving on to the next one right here, I guess this one we can combine the two together, but I guess tell us how you kind of create the song first. So do you start with the bass, layer guitars, and then vocals are last?
This one varies. So I actually, low battery. I actually do, don't do that.
I'll say.
Thing working now?
Yeah.
It's got a low battery thing going on.
All right.
I write lyrics and music separately most of the time. So I, for decades, have always had like a binder, like a 3-ring binder full of lyrics and another 3-ring binder full of chord progressions, essentially. And what I do is I decide what I want to do next, and I kind of mix and match. And if it means I have to adjust the music, the rhythm or whatever, or adjust the rhythm of the lyrics, cut a couple of syllables out to make it fit, make it fit. But as far as the music itself, it's always a matter of this part right here, and then I write around it. So whatever that part is, sometimes it's lead guitar, sometimes it's a bass line, sometimes because songs usually shouldn't just be one chord progression the whole time, it's like I'm mixing and matching chord progressions that feel like they go together, with maybe a bass guitar intro and a lead guitar somewhere in the middle, and I try and match them all up. I had one that was super cool back during our second lineup. I was in Idaho drilling with the National Guard, and I really wanted to work on, I want to say Bloodborne when we got back. There's a few of them with similar titles. I'm pretty sure it was Bloodborne because of the next part of this. I call up my buddy and he says, hey, I just wrote music for Bloodborne. And I go, oh, I had a really good idea for the chord progression.
The video game?
Huh?
The video game Bloodborne.
Yes. Not quite. But yes. The chord progression that I decided I wanted to use for it was the blood code for Mortal Kombat. A, B, A, C, A, B, B. I was like, well, that's not the right number of chords. But what we do is we just leave like a blank at the end, like a one measure rest. So you do a measure of A, B, A, C, A, B, B, rest, right? And he's like, you know what? That might actually work with the rhythm that I came up with. And it did. So what he was playing on guitar, he just adjusted to that chord progression, and it sounds amazing. And then he quit the band. But
of course. And you have to have that sort of magic going on too. So yeah, I can see why.
So the recordings that we did, I've had to re-record everything, but we're still friends, and I've talked to him, and it's obviously my song. But yeah, I just, that was always a cool story. I thought, we're not even in the same state, but I come up with a chord progression, he comes up with a rhythm, and they fit. And also the main part he had come up with was the chorus, and I was thinking more along the lines of the verse or vice versa. And so we kind of stuck the two together and had a finished project, along with an intro I'd written. At some other point, he took two of my intros and switched them because he's like, this intro goes better with this song, this intro goes better with this song. So even stuff like that, I'm giving him writing credits on stuff because he had ideas. He had good ideas. But he's not in the band. So I'm not playing his songs, but I am using his influence over my music quite a bit on this upcoming album.
All right. That sounds pretty cool. I guess, how much battery life do you have left? I want to make sure we don't get cut off while we're going through the questions.
17%.
I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and jump to the fun questions right here. Then we can mix the last two together too. So start off here with a fun one. I guess, so what would you consider your favorite food?
Yesterday, I really wanted Mongolian grill, and there just isn't any here. So for lack of opportunity, every time we go to Oregon, we have to have Mongolian grill, because everything around here has kind of Texified it. Like, it's just not right. It's a little bit too barbecue. I don't know how that happened, but there's this Mongolian place in Killeen that everybody keeps telling, oh yeah, there's the one in Killeen. I'm like, no, I've been there twice. I get emails from them. I'm on their mailing list. I don't want it. Because they got the sauces all wrong, and that's the whole difference between that and, Panda Express. I want Mongolian food. I've found a couple of places in Austin that are pretty good, but by the time we're driving to Austin, we're getting something else. So they exist, but I'd just as soon go to Oregon for Mongolian food as Austin.
So he's already prepping the beard, so he's already got the Genghis Khan sort of style going right there. So
yeah, it's
you're taking over China before you know it.
Anytime now, because I'm tall.
And you're intimidating too. He's got the burly shoulders and everything too.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He looks like he could have been someone in physical education.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Just ride a motorcycle through there, mow them all down with my sidecar.
Yeah, one good dream. That's for sure.
Yeah.
For the next one here, what would you consider as your favorite movie?
always bugs me when I see this question, a bunch of people answer it with like something new that just came out. Like, you don't know that yet. You have to wait a couple of decades and see if it's still your favorite movie. So then I have to answer with something like Mallrats, which, at the time would have been stupid, but now it's among the movies I've watched the most times. I've worn out my copy of Pulp Fiction on VHS, but then when I bought it on DVD, I never watched it again.
It's just not the same.
Yeah, but my VHS I didn't wear it out myself. I actually bought it from a video rental place that went out of business. So it had some wear on it already, some of which was from me. But yeah, I'd say Pulp Fiction and Mallrats are right up there for influential movies at a good time in my life.
I didn't realize it, but we actually still got our VHS tapes over here too. All of like the movies I watched as a kid and everything. So I had to laugh. Like, damn, we still had those things. So.
I got so long ago. I've got movies that I've bought on VHS, Blu-ray, DVD, and digital. Like 10 Things I Hate About You and Spy Game. Just random movies where it's like, well, now that I've got a whole new setup, I better buy it again.
Yeah, nope. That's not how it works anymore. So. Fair enough. All right, good choices. And first off, for this next one right here, do you drink alcohol by any chance?
A bit.
Okay, what would you say is your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
I can't even think of a non-alcoholic drink now, which is weird. I definitely have some that I don't like. I don't like when it's too sweet. So moving to Texas and being introduced to things like sweet tea, I have to do half and half. It has to be half unsweet and half sweet because it's just, I can't drink syrup. And Big Red is the other one where it's liquid cotton candy. And we had some friends coming through and we took them out for barbecue at one of our favorite barbecue places. They're like, we were told we need to try Big Red. And this guy buys Big Red for all of the kids in his family. And he ends up having to drink all of them because he doesn't want to throw it away. But none of the kids would drink it either. It's just too sweet. It does make for a good float. Big Red floats are actually very good. Because the Big Red is so much sweeter than the ice cream mellows it out. So that was fun, discovering Big Red floats. But,
that sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite good. As far as alcoholic, I'd say I like a good amber or red ale or darker. Some really good brown ales. Sometimes an imperial stout can be a bit much, so moderation on those. But I can drink a brown ale all night, or amber or red, anything in that range. And then Scotch, peaty Scotch is something I discovered much later and by accident. Lefroy, Lagavulin, Ardbeg, all of those where it tastes like a bog. And the other bonus to that is that my wife won't drink it, so I get the whole bottle to myself.
Score.
Yeah, I let that one last. I enjoy it for months because I don't want to have to pay to replace it very soon. It's not something I chug, but it goes great with a cigar.
Yeah, that sounds good, actually. All right, good choices. And last fun questions. What would you consider is currently your favorite song or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
Other than my own stuff and the dozens and dozens of indie bands that I'm finding on these Facebook groups and all of I'm spending a lot of time in the playlists that are made that include me. So you want me to listen to your song, put me on a playlist, and I'll listen to the playlist, which will include your song.
That's blackmail, man.
Hey, it works.
All right, fair enough, yeah.
As these songs come out, like April 12th, I'm putting out a single. I'm going to make a playlist with a bunch of songs that I think go well with it. A lot of these playlists are just hey, you have a song you want on a playlist, and they don't necessarily flow. I'm on one recently that is all grunge, and the songs flow, all feel right together. Ooh, 10%. All right. But
All right, that's all good. Yeah. So
prior to that, like before it was all about my music, one of my favorite where I would just be like, this is a perfect song, is Kill My Darlings by Stavesacre. And I could say any Stavesacre album, just throw it on, listen to it beginning to end. But for a song, that is incredible. It's got so much going on in it that I visualize myself doing all sorts of stuff. I'm like, this is the perfect song for like a movie trailer because it's got so much motion to it that I feel like you could do like a quick cut through a bunch of fight scenes and chase scenes and all this stuff to this song. Just beautiful. Kill My Darlings by Stavesacre, the only band where I have their logo tattooed. Love those guys. Actually, my only vinyl that I own is their first album that just got like reproduced, Friction, and I have it on vinyl, unopened because I don't have a record player. But yes, I have Friction on vinyl. Love Stavesacre. Love them.
all right, sounds good. I'm sorry, we're kind of running out of time right here, so we'll go ahead and jump into the last question. And normally I like to ask, but we'll save it for next time if you had any questions for me or anything else too. So maybe you could be the teacher and ask any questions for me afterwards. Okay.
Okay.
So first off, when did you join Band Together on Facebook?
Whenever I got invited, I feel like I may have been in a bunch of groups when Band Together started. Did it start within the last year or two?
Something like that, yeah. Maybe a little bit before. I'm not too sure, but it's felt like it's been there last couple of years. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I joined it as it opened. I feel like I was among the first. I feel like I was part of the group that established it. So whenever it started, I was right there. Because I've been working on getting into these groups and being more active on social media for the last, I want to say 3 years, like heavily, spending all of my time on building name recognition, essentially, and building relationships with these other bands to where people know who I am.
All right. But for the question right here, given what COVID has done, and I guess maybe other struggles that musicians have faced in general, let alone people, what advice would you give, and what sort of message of hope would you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in a post-COVID world?
Well, we can get together again, so that's good. I think COVID and the interneting of everything has made it so it's probably easier now to work with somebody out of state, right? Bands where over the years they've moved apart, they can still play together in some way or another because everything is so online interconnected. It's probably easier than ever to have a long distance band and to work with musicians from other areas. As far as challenges and advice, a lot of it is just like any other market where it's supply and demand. And so finding your audience can be difficult, but there is an audience. Everybody has an audience. It's just the challenge of finding them, finding the people who want to hear your work. And again, because it's online, it doesn't have to be your hometown that loves you. I'm pretty sure mine wouldn't. I come from a town of 600. And I'm pretty sure they cheated on that and counted the sheep. Because there's no way there's 600 people in that town. And of those, how many of them want to listen to 1997 angry grunge? 3. So being able to do everything online makes it a whole lot easier to find an audience. I've got people listening to my music in Ireland, Scotland, the UK, just all over the world that I would never reach if I had to drive there. So it's fantastic seeing where people are listening to my music without me having to leave Central Texas. And maybe someday when I leave Central Texas, they'll come to my show. Find your audience. They're out there.
All right. Well, I would hope. And as they say in Pulp Fiction, spoken like a true prodigy. All right. So, Jesse, I'm afraid we're out of time right now. It is Easter Sunday, so got to cut it short right now. But just real quick, tell us what social media are you on so people can check out your music?
The music is streaming everywhere music streams, as After the Mourning. The Instagram is After the Mourning, again with a U. On Instagram, it's got underscores, so after_the_mourning. On Twitter, it's cut off before the G, so it's After the Mourning. So you got to say it with an accent on Twitter, just like everything else.
Like a Texas dialect or something.
I believe After the Mourning on Facebook is actually my personal account, and the band account is After the Mourning Loves You. All one word, no underscores or dots or anything. Just After the Mourning Loves You. There is a TikTok. Pretty sure it's After the Mourning with underscores. I go on there and post and get back off without looking at anything. So, but because so many people are on it, I have to officially be on it. I just don't have time to spend time on it. But if you follow me on TikTok, I'll follow you back. You follow me on Instagram, I'll follow you back. You follow me on Facebook, I'll probably interact with you a lot more because that's where I've decided to devote most of my time. It's better for things like links. I don't know why it's so difficult to post links on Instagram, but
not too sure.
We're
everywhere. Okay, sounds good. So everyone, like I said, was Jesse Myers, hail from Belton, Texas. He's part of the group After the Mourning. Currently a solo project, but it seems to be like a little internship. So we'll see where it goes. So Jesse, best of luck to you and happy Easter, man. You stay safe. Rock on. Stay tuned, y'all.
All right. Thanks.